do understand under the accessibility. So when you say accessibility, a lot of people really think it's about the building structure or about the design of the building or accessibility compliance standards. But we believe it's about the experience, and the accessible technologies can really change the way people are contributing to the society and being part of it. And this is how it helps for the inclusivity. This is human imperative, and this is really unfortunate, but this is life. I mean, at some point in our lives, we will need assistance. But when you look at the figures that we have right now, it's just like mind-blowing. Over 1 billion people have disability. 1 in 10 only have access to the products needed, assistive technology. They do have twice as higher the unemployment rate compared to those who don't have disability. And when you look at this, disability piece, it can be permanent, it can be situational, it can be temporary. Another survey was done just to understand what is the percentage of this disability. So basically 80% of the disability is invisible. So you don't really understand, you don't see the person having issues, Other piece is 73% have dyslexia that may not really report to their, employers. 72% going into the education a little bit. So 72% of classrooms have kids with individual education needs, and up to 20% of students are impacted by dyslexia. So this is really big numbers that we all need to take care of. So we look at the disabilities in these big, 6 groups: vision, hearing, neurodiversity, mental health, mobility, and learning. I would like to share with you a little bit of insights from the COVID, because it would give you the perspective of things happening during the COVID and afterwards, because this is, in my opinion, very, impactful. So in Microsoft, we do have disability answer desk. So this is an answer desk where the customers can call in and ask for help in terms of understanding how the features are, or what kind of accessibility features are built into the Microsoft product. So during COVID time, we had 200% increase in those calls. This is like thousands of calls during a day. The other thing was 560% increase in immersive reader usage. So when you really get the focused without no interruption or noise to really get concentrated. The other thing was the Teams captioning. It shows how the society was not really ready to give the floor and to include the people with disabilities into the society. 35% of special needs children during COVID time did little or no remote learning at all. So this is where we see also the governments and corporations are putting a lot of attention to this topic after the COVID. So they are putting it on their priority list for them. And we're working with them in building the strategy for the accessibility. Accessibility is a responsibility, especially for a company like us, that we can make a change in how things are evolving. But at the same time, I would like to highlight a little bit about the opportunity itself with the accessibility. There was a survey done among the companies who would absorb the culture of accessibility and inclusivity, and they definitely outperform their peers. Would it be by revenue? They have more, higher net income, and better performance on economic profit margin also. So this is an opportunity, and accessibility also drives innovation. In my opinion, this is the key point. In my opinion, you are tapping into a talent, a pool of a huge talent with those kids, adults. This is the innovation that this is what drives the innovation. So in Microsoft, we had a long journey, and that has been evolving in different, in different upgrades, in different motions and projects. But in reality, the big change has happened in 2014 when the new CEO, Satya Nadella, joined as a CEO to Microsoft, and he put it on a really institutionalized level. So basically, it's kind of a woven into our DNA, in the Microsoft DNA. The accessibility is woven, built into the culture, into the systems, into the products, into the procedures. So this is where we have been really very systematically and persistently looking into that direction. And we made a commitment, actually, a new commitment 1.5, 2 years ago to breach the digital divide. So this is the commitment from Microsoft's side to really share the experience that we have been going through for a very long time. And we do have a lot of experience to share with the rest, best practices, the failures, how to develop the strategy. So now with this new commitment from Microsoft, we are looking at partners to help them create assistive technologies to make sure that accessibility is part of their thinking, also to really create and develop the talent, because as I said, it's a huge pool of people who can bring innovation and also the culture itself. And it resonates with our mission to empower every person and organization to do more, and also empower every student and organization to achieve more, right? And this is what is not bolted on, but is built in as well in our products. So this is part of everything. Going a little bit into the education piece, let me share with you our view of how we look at the accessibility and inclusivity in the world of learning. And my colleagues have been sharing a lot about personalized learning, about this, a personalized approach to each and every student to help them perform and be part and have the success in their learning and at school. So we look at the education and accessibility in education in 3 big groups. So inclusively designed, acceleration of learning through our products, and also the well-being of itself. So it's 3 big chunks of kind of grouping things that are part of our thinking behind what we are upgrading in our products, and how we help our customers to really understand this personalized learning and personalized approach to each and every student. Let's look into the inclusively designed piece. So this is the list of part of the things that we have in terms of inclusively designed. And there are multiple ways to support students to have access to the technology, to engage, to communicate, and also share what they know and what they can do. If we look at the piece with the different, 6 groups of disabilities that we have, like it's amazing to see how Microsoft is building in each and product, and had a very clear understanding how to do this in any product development. Look, for example, activation of live captions in Teams, in PowerPoint, or search meeting transcriptions to review those after the meeting. So this is something that I really like. And one thing that this is very easy and sweet, this is the accessibility checker. Basically, this is a thing which runs in the background. And I won't be hijacking Jernej's demo presentation, just wanted to call this out because I love it. So it's built into the Outlook, into the Excel, into the OneNote. It helps you to really understand what kind of issues you can have in your regular email. For a person with the accessibility, it would give you recommendations how to do it. And also it can fix it. The AI provides image description. So if you have an email with an image in it, so you can adjust the image description that the artificial intelligence put in there and make it, more accessible for people who may not be able to view the image, for example, themselves. So the other group that we're looking through is the acceleration of learning itself. So, and this is again, Jernej will be, walking you through the inactions. But what I wanted to mention here is that this really helps, like, look at the real-time data insights, and immersive learning can really accelerate the process for the kids. The educator can identify from real-time insights the challenges kids are getting and where to intervene and where to help. The products are built with the AI and Asia cognitive services that makes everything more inclusive. So this is something that I wanted to highlight, because behind it, we have this AI and Asia cognitive services to help. Would it be, real-time subtitles, or would it be a accessibility checker, which is again with the AI in it. The next group that we are looking at is the foster well-being. We all know that the well-being of the kids really creates the motivation and engagement and learning. Also, the same would be for the educators who were experiencing a lot of concerns related to the public health overall crisis during and after COVID. And this is where the personalized learning can take place. Reflect app that Jernej will be showing up to you can really understand the kid, how the kid is doing. Is he feeling well? Why he's not active in the school, in the class to participate and contribute. I wanted to encourage to look into the accessibility fundamentals training. So we do have the MS Learn platform, which is free of charge, and we do have a lot of resources devoted to the accessibility. Take the accessibility fundamentals training series. That's a very good one, just to grasp the general idea of how we look and how we advise others to look into. For the educators, there is the educator kind of part in the MS Learn, where there's a lot of courses related to the learning and personalized learning for the kids, so educators really can grasp good ideas out of those courses. The last thing that we have here that I wanted to share with you is Assistive Technologies for Education Commission Survey, which was done back in 2019 with Forrester Consulting to qualify the benefits of our accessibility tools on students, teachers, and schools. So the feedback that we got from around 90K students and over 5K faculty and staff showed, and we grouped it in 4 big areas, but I wanted to call out a couple of things. So 20% of the improvement in reading and writing. So this is how Microsoft tools and with built-in accessibility help the kids to really improve in that area. The other was the IT, savings that we observed from those surveys. $50 per student per year. I mean, it's a pretty, impressive amount to save in terms of having those costs. And 97 additional hours, instructional hours per teacher per year was shown by using our technologies. So this was the total economic impact done. And also I've included the link that you can look into all the accessibility features we have here. And at the end, I would like to share with you an inspirational video that I like a lot.
The true purpose of education is to create possibility.
It was a little hard for me. People laugh whenever I read sometimes.
Well, they knew how to read, and I didn't.
I will never be good at reading. I will probably be held back again.
It highlights the words to know where I am.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words, and it's easier to focus on.
The first time I actually could read that book, I was proud of myself.
I was very proud of myself. Good job, Joey.
When technology and education come together, possibility becomes reality.
I want to read every book in here.
Well, I think this video is really inspirational, and we see the impact of technology that brings the happiness and the performance increase in the kids.
My name is Jernej. I work as a technical specialist in education together with Diana and pretty much everyone that we've seen today. What I wanted to do is really show some of the highlights, some of the things that are available that we can use daily when it comes to accessibility. So I would like to start with, let's say, the most basic of features, and that is in Windows 11. When I open the Settings app, I can immediately now see accessibility as a menu item here. So what I can do is I can, for example, I can have things related to vision, hearing, and interaction that I can change. So for example, if I want to increase the text size, right, I can change the slider here, make it easier for me to read. Then I have things like if I want to increase or change my mouse pointer, if I want to make a touch indicator so that I can easier show what I'm doing, I can change what the text cursor will look like. So all sorts of things that I can directly in the Windows settings, I can start changing. Another one also for lower vision is contract themes. So if I have difficulty reading what's on screen, I can, for example, change the Windows theme to make it easier to read, easier to understand, and I can again adjust it based on my personal needs. We also have some audio settings that we can do here. I can even change what the captions will look like. So for example, I have white on black right now. I could also change it, have it in small caps, large text, yellow on blue. And again, this is easily accessible right here from the settings. Now, besides that, maybe another thing that I would like to show here, the built-in clock application in Windows 11 and 10. Now, what I have here is focus sessions. So if you know about the Pomodoro technique, right, I can set up here my my working periods. For example, I can say, okay, I want to do 90 minutes of focused work. So what I can do here is when I start focusing, it starts counting down, and then I can do the 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, for example. It's directly integrated also with my tasks application. So I have some to-do lists here. I can even select here that I want to work on this specific task, run it, and I can start doing it. And then I also have daily progress. So I can set what my daily goal is, for example, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of intensive work. And I can then here see, so basically at the progress, I can see how many sessions I did, how many I have remaining, and so on. Okay. With that, let me jump into PowerPoint. So I have the same slides that Diana was showing earlier, just to kind of show it again. So you can see here, I have accessibility as a tab in PowerPoint. And this is actually a version that I corrupted on purpose so that I have some accessibility issues here. And you can see automatically it's scanned through my presentation or Diana's presentation, and it's found what the issues are. And I can easily now check, for example, reading order, and I have some tips here on why to do it. And what I also like is right here, it also gives me the instructions how to fix it, so how to make my presentation more accessible, and also why it matters, right? So in this case, for alternative text, this is for people that won't see the image. And if I put in the alternative text, then I can make it easier for them. Reading order, again, if I have someone that will be using a screen reader to read out the content that's on screen, it makes sense for me to be mindful of what's the order and how things follow one another. So we were talking about features that are built into Teams. And maybe one thing that Diana also mentioned was the emotional learning, right? So what I have here is the Reflect app. Just run it. And what this allows me to do is, if I'm a teacher, I can have check-ins with my students, and I can get how they are feeling, how, for example, how satisfied they are with the progress in their class, how are they feeling about today's assignment, and so on. So I can check what the check-in trends are. So I can click on that and it will give me some image on, for example, this is my class called Physical Science, and now it will show me how my students are feeling. So for example, I have 28 check-ins. I have average participation of 16 out of 30. I can see what the top words are, how my students are describing what they are feeling and how they are feeling. And I can even check, for example, for each and every day, I can see here how my students are feeling. And again, I can also check what the most common words that my students are picking are. So I see here I have 29 disappointed responses. So this, as a teacher, gives me some insight, and I can actually look at who are my students, or who of my students are not satisfied with the content, with their progress, and so on. And it allows me to reach out to them to hopefully be able to do something extra for them, so that they can not miss any of the class, and that we can bring them together and start working on the progress. I also have a table view here. For example, I see Kiana said concerned and disappointed and then cheerful, so something is improving, right? But I have some people here, for example, disappointed, hurt, lonely. So for me as a teacher, I would definitely want to reach out to Ethan to see how he's doing and if he needs any extra support. I can also click on a specific student here, and immediately I have the option to start a conversation with them, or I can see their report. So for example, let's see for the last 28 days, I see that the top words are annoyed, right? He checked in 18 times, and I see most of the words that he is using are not really positive. So again, I can see now that maybe this is a student who is struggling in my class, and I can use this information to reach out to them. Now, let me show you some other things in the Reflect app. So for example, here I have one that says, how are you feeling today? It was opened today, just like 2 hours ago. Let me check what's happening here. Okay, so I have some students that have already responded here. I have 7 out of 30 that have responded. Maybe let's go back and find one where more students have responded. So for example, let's do this one. And so here again, I can see how many students used which emoji to describe their emotions. I can even check what the percentage is. And for example, what I would be mostly interested in is to see who is angry, who is ashamed in this case, and what additional support they might need. Another cool feature is if I go into the Together view, we have the so-called feeling monsters. Now, the logic why we have these characters here is that sometimes students and even adults, we don't know how to name our emotions properly. So what happens is that in Reflect, you can either choose a word or you can choose characters like this. So you can see the little monsters, and you can select based on how you are feeling, what their expression is on the face, and you can select it to make it easier as a student to respond. And here I can see student names, and this is something that only teachers see, so students wouldn't see this. But I can also say I want to hide it, and then I just need to look at what the general feeling is or the temperature is in my class. Now, if I want to create a simple reflect, all I have to do is click on Create Check-in. And so here I pick what the question will be. So how are you feeling today? How does this week feel for you? How are you feeling about, for example, math or something that we are doing in the class? How do your friendships feel today? And then if I want to log the responses and names or just responses. And so let me show you how it looks from the student perspective. So you can see this is like a calendar. So for each day, the student would select an emotion from the list. And this is an example on how a dashboard looks like for a student. So for example, let's select this one. And you can see first, I can choose based on 5 emojis here. So going from the smiliest one to the angry one. And I select, for example, the yellow one. Now, I can select the actual emotions here. And for example, let's say I don't know what skeptical would mean. And you see here, I see the feeling monster, and I see the explanation of what the emotion is. So that's how the students can actually circle through this, and they can select how they are feeling and make it easier for them, even for their emotional education, so to say, because they are learning new feelings, new emotions through the application. So let's say we are feeling energized, submit it. And now I have it here in the dashboard as a student. Okay. So this would be one. So reflect to foster emotional learning with our students. Another thing that I can select here is insights. Now, what insights does is it gives me as a teacher kind of an overview of the whole class. Okay, so I can see now that 5 students might need more support next week. And why this is because here I can see, okay, Hannah accessed fewer online class materials. They worked less in their notebook. I have Felix, who started their team's assignment later as usual, participated less in the class. So again, this is AI that's kind of monitoring my class and gives me actionable insights. Okay, so I see here that I have students who have kind of stopped responding. They have stopped being active in the meetings, and it gives me kind of a hint that maybe this is something I need to look at, maybe not. But I as a teacher can then decide whether or not I want to take some action on this. Then I also have insights based on meetings. So for example, I see now that Gabriel Woods was often late. Let's see what else I have. I have here that all of the students have submitted the assignment I give them, but at the same time, I had 2 students that were not active at all. Okay, so again, what happens here is that I can drill down into the data that is gathered automatically. So I can, for example, drill down into reflect. So this is the same thing that we were looking at before, right? Or I can say I want to see the assignments. So what grades I've been giving out, how many people have, how many students have been late to submit the assignment, do I have any missing submissions? And I can see here, those are all of the assignments. And I can also see the average grade. So again, this gives me an option to kind of immediately see how my class is doing. Reading progress is another feature that I'll be showing just in a couple of seconds. But again, what I wanted to highlight here is that the data is gathered automatically, everything kind of works together, but then I, as a teacher, can either take action or not take action based on what I'm seeing here. Now with that, I want to show you also one of, in my opinion, cooler accessibility features, and that is, it's called Immersive Reader. So I have a class notebook here. Basically, this is OneNote class notebook. And as you can see, I have some content already created. Now, if I want, I can, for example, I can go to draw and I can do some drawings here if I want to. Now, the thing I wanted to highlight here is that if I go under View, and then I can open Immersive Reader right here. So what Immersive Reader does is, let me enter full screen mode. So I have the name of the document right here on the top. And then I have the text positioned a bit differently in a way that makes it easier to read. Now, especially with people that have, for example, attention issues or that have dyslexia and things like that, here is basically a tool that helps them to move and decorate and position the text that makes it as easy as possible for them to read. Let me show you what I mean with that. So for example, I can change the text size. I can increase or decrease the spacing. So for example, if this makes it easier for me to read, I can do it like that. I can change the font. I can also change the colors. So for example, maybe this makes it easier for me to read. I have even more colors if I want to pick from them. Now also for grammar, what I have here is I can say, let's split it based on syllables. And you can see now I have just, as, this, tons, and so on and so on. And I can even use here to have it colored. So I want to color the nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. So in this case, it makes it easier to learn either my primary language, like my mother tongue, or even a foreign language, because I can have the words colored like that. Now, another feature here that I can use very easily, for example, I can do line focus. Okay, so now I can go line by line, and it helps me not get distracted by the rest of the text. Or I can do it, for example, 3 lines, right? And I have it like this. And then also I have translation immediately built into Immersive Reader. So you see I have the Italian language here. And if I click on a word, it gives me the original text, distance, and then I have La distanza in Italian. And I can even click the speakerphone, the icon of the speakerphone, to read the word back to me. Again, making it very easy to learn. Now, also another feature is the picture dictionary. So if I don't know what displacement would mean, for example, or have, or distinctly, I can click on the words, and it gives me some picture association to make it easier for me to remember the word. Now, besides that, I can also use Immersive Reader to have it read back the text that I have here. So for example, if I change the voice settings, I can change the speed, how fast I want the Immersive Reader to read it back to me, male or female voice, and then now it's reading back. Okay, so now it was reading back. So again, what I can do is, if I have trouble reading longer passages of text, I can just use Immersive Reader to have it read back to me. This is Immersive Reader. Now, one more thing that I would like to show here is I can either text, the text I have here, I can either type it myself. This is my text. Or if I use the voice input, the shortcut is Windows key and H. So now it's listening to what I'm saying, and I'm basically dictating, and it's typing without me having to touch the keyboard. Here we go. Okay, so I can do typing without touch, and I also have the option here, auto punctuation, right? And I can use this to basically say the text, and then it gets added into the content here. So I can launch it anywhere, anytime I want. I can have it launched by default, that every time I type in, for example, in a input field or something like that, that it will automatically launch. Or I can even use here, you can see there's a dictate button, and it launches pretty much the same feature. Right, so the dictate button, I did it here. The one here is only working within OneNote. But if I use the one I was showing earlier, it works throughout the whole operating system. And I can use the dictation function even to send emails, to speak and do actions on the computer. So all of that is possible. And finally, the last thing I would like to show is I mentioned Immersive Reader, and I mentioned it in OneNote. Now, the cool part is that Immersive Reader is now working throughout the whole Edge browser. It's working in Excel, PowerPoint, Word. So throughout all of Office 365 applications, you have Immersive Reader. And so here, for example, I can go under View, Immersive Reader, and again, it opens the text I have in Word as Immersive Reader. So I think that's also quite a nifty feature. Again, I have dictation here, I have transcription, so all of that I can use. And maybe one final thing here is editor. So instead of just having like regular old spell check, now it's actually been upgraded quite a lot. So editor, what we can do with it now is, instead of just having the like spell checking to see if I mistyped any of the words, I also get instructions on where, for example, if I left out a comma or if I did something that's grammatically maybe not the best. I can even pick what kind of writing I'm doing. So if this is casual, professional, or formal, and it will give me instructions on how to write to make sure that the content I'm producing fits into what I'm trying to produce. So for example, right here, you see it suggests that I use remove instead of removed. And this is just some random text I found on the internet, so it doesn't make any sense, but it gives me actually full ideas on how to make it even better. So not just spelling and grammatic errors, but even how to make it better. So in this case, for example, the word is pretty future, and the editor gives me the suggestion to maybe skip the word pretty to be more concise and to make the wording more clear. It also gives me the option to check if this is similar to online sources. So I can even have the comparison, how much of what I'm writing is my own work instead of copying from someone else. Okay, so with that, I think we highlighted some of the features that we have available first in Windows as all of the accessibility settings. You've probably seen, for example, in Teams calls, for example, you have the option for transcription, right, and subtitles and so on. So that's another one. Then the tools that I was showing that are built into the whole Office 365 suite, and putting everything together. I can just echo what Diana was saying, that right now it's our software is built with accessibility in mind, instead of just kind of adding additional features.